Hi, my name is Mary Jackson, and I would like to share my testimony. I remember a time when I began to experience a very sudden illness, and I was living a normal life. There was nothing that I could think of at the moment that would have contributed to it. I was working a normal job, and I began to experience hives that covered my body. I began to go in and out of the emergency room like on a daily basis, and I began to have trouble breathing. At the time, I attributed it to being an asthmatic. And so the first thing that I did was go to the ER, and they told me that I was having an allergic reaction. And so they gave me steroids, they gave me Benadryl through an IV, but that didn't help it. With steroids, your lungs should be at least at an 80% capacity or 90% capacity, and at the time, even on steroids, I was less than 70 at the time. And so it was very sudden, and the doctors weren't understanding what exactly was going on. So this was happening on a daily basis, to where I was almost going into shock because of these symptoms. My eyes would be swollen, my tongue would be swollen. I would be covered from my face to my feet. It was very painful. I wasn't able to do like daily things. I couldn't go up and down the stairs. I couldn't care for my children. And it was just very random, very random. And I didn't understand exactly what was happening. And I couldn't work at this point. And so I went to an allergist, a specialist. And normally what they do is they prick you with different types of everything to determine exactly what's causing the allergic reaction. And so they prick you, and then they tell you to come back after a certain time. And I did that, and when I came back, my body had reacted to every single thing that they stuck me with. Things that I had been eating since my childhood. A week ago, they're now telling me that I'm allergic to. And so I began to take weekly allergy shots, and nothing was helping. And the doctors basically told me that there was nothing that they could do and to stop, basically to stop coming back, because they couldn't help me. And so I tried the allergy shots, but I was at a point where I could not work. And I got very desperate. And I began to just cry out to Jesus day in and day out. And before this, I was not fully submitted or committed to Christ. Not that I was in sin or doing anything crazy, drinking, smoking, nothing like that. But I was in sin because I was not fully committed to the call of God on my life. And so I was basically running from God. And I believe the Lord used this to pull me back, to draw me back to Him. So back to that moment, or these moments, when I could work, I would come home and I would basically close myself in my room, and I would read the Word of God, and I would cry, and I would sing, and I would pray, and I would cry for the Lord to just deliver me, to heal me. I would be taking allergy medicine, but it just felt like there was a weight that was sitting on my chest, and I could not breathe. And the medicine wasn't helping. And this is when I began to realize that this was not a natural sickness. And although I wasn't really knowledgeable in things of the Spirit, and I didn't understand warfare or anything of that, I understood that this was something more, because nothing was nothing was helping naturally. And so, like I said, day in and day out, I would just cry out to God, and I would ask the Lord to deliver me, to heal me, to reveal himself. Like, God, if you're real, Lord, just heal me. If you're real, just reveal yourself to me. And I remember one night in particular, the Lord said to me to go into the shower, but he was very specific, don't take soap. And so that allowed me to know that there was something, that I had an expectation that God was going to do something. I didn't know what, but for him to be that specific, I knew that something was going to happen. And so I did exactly what the Lord told me to do. And I went in the bathroom, I went into the shower, and just like I had done all those days before, I cried out to God. I sung to him, Lord, I won't let you go until you bless me, until you heal me, until you deliver me. Like, I'm going to stay in your face, like you're gonna get tired of me, because I need you that desperately. And so I would sing that same song, Lord, I'm not going to let you go until you heal me, until you bless me. And I didn't even understand. I wasn't even aware of Jacob's story at that time when I was saying these things to the Lord. And so I'm crying out to him. I'm in the shower, and the water that's coming down, it's just water. But at some point, something shifted in the atmosphere, and the water was not natural water anymore. And every time the water hit me, it's like my body just, I don't know, it was just like glory that was coming from the water. I knew it wasn't natural anymore. And I put my hands under it, and I continued to cry out, I continued to pray, but my body just doubled over under the glory of God. And I began to just speak in tongues, and it was so much power and so much glory in that moment. And so I literally was slumped over the edge of the shower, and my husband peeked his head, and he was like, what is going on? And when he looked at me, he said, you don't even look the same. Like, what happened? And I explained to him what happened. And this was someone who could not walk up and down the stairs, someone who couldn't breathe, someone who was constantly on the verge of a reaction, whatever was going on. And now in a moment, in an instant, that was gone. I could breathe. Something was lifted supernaturally in that moment. And so I was just so full of joy. The joy of the Lord was definitely on me. There was definitely a glow through that encounter. But it didn't stop there. God didn't stop there, though he could have. He didn't stop there. And I remember that night, my husband and I, we went to bed. But the whole time, even after this, I felt a presence in my room, and I knew it was an angel. And like I said, I had no understanding of the supernatural, the warfare, any of that. All I knew is I felt a presence, and I knew it was an angel. There was just a knowing at the moment. And so that whole night, I tried to keep my husband up because I was so afraid. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I couldn't hide from God. But I did my best to try to keep him up. And when he fell asleep, it's like automatically, I remember there being like, the best way that I could describe it is almost like a spiral. And it's like I could do nothing. There was nothing that I could do to prevent myself from like going. It was a spiral. There was a light, and I remember going into this dream, and in this dream, I was a little girl again, and I was so happy, and I was so full of joy, and I was on this bridge, and I pushed this button on the bridge, and when I pushed the button on the bridge, this spring of water hit my belly. And as soon as it hit my belly, I began to ascend up. It was like my spirit began to ascend up into the heavenlies. And I remember I had a knowing. Again, there was just a knowing. And I knew that if I went any higher, that I would be in the presence of God. I just knew it. And in that same breath and with that same understanding, I knew that I wasn't ready to see God. And so I said in that moment, and there's nothing that you have to utter. In the heavenlies, in the supernatural, like everything is known. So within myself, as I'm floating, as I'm ascending, and basically as I'm ascending, I could feel the tangible love of God. And I was so overwhelmed. A lot of times people ask me, well, what did you see? And I tell them every single time, it's not about what I saw, it's about what I felt. And the love of God is living, it's breathing, and there it's tangible, it's alive. And the Lord gave me a moment to feel that. And it's like it undid everything that was happening in that moment. It's like the Lord was just saying, I am real. Those cries, I am here. I do see you, I do understand. And so as I'm floating up off the love of God, I still have that understanding that I wasn't ready to see God. I haven't been living according to the call, according to the purpose of God on my life. And so there was a fear, there was a resistance. And so I told the Lord in that moment, I said, God, thank you for showing me that you're real and that you hear me, but I don't know if I'm ready to see you. And in that moment, my spirit began to come back down into my body. And I know this happened for real because I was able to feel how light our spirits are, how light. It was just like a feather just coming back down. And when my spirit came back into my body, I sat up on the bed and I just began to weep. And I began to share with my husband what had happened. And that was the turning point in my life. That was my first supernatural experience, vision, if you will, with the Lord. And there would be many more to come, but this was the turning point in my life.